Hey folks, tonight we're slipping into something a bit more ancient, a bit more dusty, and a whole lot less comfortable. We're diving deep into the world of ancient Egypt, but not the one with glittering pharaohs, golden tombs, or Hollywood's dazzling Nile River cruises. Nope, we're talking about the real grit, the life of a poor child in ancient Egypt around 1500 BCE during the New Kingdom. This isn't a tale of mummies or monuments. It's a story of survival, sweat, and sand in places you'd rather not have it. Trust me, you wouldn't last a day in their sandals. So, settle in, let the hum of the modern world fade, and let's step into the life of a kid who's just trying to make it through another scorching day in the land of the Nile. Picture this, you're a kid, maybe 8 years old, waking up in a mud brick house in a village near Thebes. The sun's already blazing, sneaking through the gaps in your home's reed roof. Your bed? It's not a bed. It's a woven mat on the hard-packed dirt floor, shared with your siblings, a few stray bugs, and the faint smell of yesterday's fish stew. No cozy blankets, no fluffy pillows. Just a scratchy linen cloth that's been passed down so many times it's more holes than fabric. The air is thick, a mix of dust, sweat, and the faint whiff of the Nile's muddy banks nearby. You blink awake to the sound of your mother grinding grain, the rhythmic scrape of stone on stone. It's not gentle, but it's your alarm clock, and it's been going since before dawn. Your house is one room, maybe two if your family's doing slightly better than the neighbors. The walls are crumbling mud brick, patched with whatever your parents could scrounge. Straw, dung, or more mud. There's no glass in the windows, just wooden shutters or reed mats that barely keep out the flies. Your family's entire life happens in this cramped space. Cooking, sleeping, arguing, and dodging the goat that wandered in because someone left the door open. Privacy, forget it. You're never alone. Your siblings are sprawled next to you. Your parents are muttering about the day's work, and there's always a cousin or a grandparent squeezed in somewhere. The air smells like a mix of burnt bread, unwashed bodies, and the faint tang of the river. It's not a home, it's a survival hub. You roll off your mat, your bare feet hitting the dirt floor. It's cool for now, but in a few hours it'll feel like walking on a griddle. Your stomach growls, but breakfast isn't a guarantee. If you're lucky, there's a chunk of flatbread left from last night, maybe some dried fish or a handful of dates. But don't get your hopes up for a feast. Food is scarce for families like yours. The rich eat emmer wheat bread and roasted duck. You're stuck with barley flour mixed with whatever your mom could scrape together. Sometimes it's gritty with sand or bits of husk. Chewing it feels like a battle. Water comes from a clay jar, murky from the Nile, and you drink it fast because standing still invites flies. No juice, no milk, just water that tastes faintly of earth and desperation. Your clothes are simple. A linen kilt if you're a boy or a short dress if you're a girl. It's rough, hand-woven, and stained from days of wear. Washing it means a trip to the river, and that's a luxury you don't always have time for. Underwear? Not a thing. You're going commando under that linen, which chafes in the heat. If you're lucky, you've got a pair of reed sandals, but most kids go barefoot. Their feet calloused from running through dirt, rocks, and the occasional pile of animal dung. Your hair's shaved or cropped short to keep the lice at bay, but they're still there, itching like tiny demons. You scratch absently, already used to it. Everyone's got lice, it's just life. Your day's about to start, and it's not school or playtime waiting for you. Kids in ancient Egypt don't get a childhood like we think of it. By age 5, you're expected to pull your weight. If you're a boy, you might be sent to the fields or to help your father with whatever trade he's got. Maybe hauling reeds or cleaning tools. If you're a girl, you're with your mother grinding grain, fetching water, or weaving. There's no sitting around, no toys unless you count a stick and a ball of mud as entertainment. Your life is work, and work is survival. The Nile's your lifeline, but it's also your boss, dictating when you plant, when you harvest, and when you pray the floods don't wash everything away. Let's talk about that Nile for a second. It's not just a river, it's everything. It feeds you, waters the crops, and carries the boats that bring trade to your village. But it's also a gamble. Too much flooding and your fields drown. Too little and you starve. As a kid, you're already aware of this. You've seen your parents' faces tighten when the water doesn't rise right. You've heard the priests chant to Happy, the river god, begging for balance. You don't understand the details, but you know the Nile's mood swings mean the difference between a full belly and a winter of hunger. And hunger's no stranger. Some years, the harvest is so bad your family eats one meal a day, maybe less. You've learned to ignore the ache in your gut, but it's always there, like a shadow. Work starts early. If you're in the fields, you're following your father, carrying baskets of seed or dragging a wooden hoe through the dirt. The sun's brutal, no sunscreen, no shade unless you duck under a palm tree. Your skin's already tough, but it burns and cracks anyway. If you're a girl, you're hauling water from the river in heavy clay jars, balancing them on your head while dodging crocodiles and hippos. Yes, crocodiles. The Nile's not a petting zoo. It's a predator's playground. You've heard stories of kids who didn't come back, and you move fast to avoid being one of them. If your family's got a trade, maybe your dad's a potter or a basket weaver, you're his assistant. You're kneading clay, fetching reeds, or holding tools while he works. There's no take your kid to work day because every day is that day. Mistakes aren't forgiven easily. A broken pot means less food, so you learn fast or you feel your father's hand. Discipline isn't gentle in ancient Egypt. A smack or a switch isn't abuse, it's just parenting. You're not coddled, you're trained to survive. By noon, the heat's unbearable, and you're already exhausted. Your hands are blistered, your back aches, and the flies are relentless, buzzing around your face like they own you. You might get a break to eat, a scrap of bread or an onion, but it's quick. No one lingers. There's too much to do, and the gods don't reward laziness. You've been told since you could walk that the gods are watching, judging. Maat, the goddess of truth and order, demands balance. If you slack off, you're not just failing your family, you're risking divine wrath. And trust me, no one wants to mess with a ticked-off deity. Your village is small, maybe a few dozen families, all living in mud brick houses clustered along the Nile. Everyone knows everyone, and gossip spreads faster than a sandstorm. If you trip and drop a water jar, the whole village will know by sundown, and your mother will hear about it from 3 different neighbors. Community is tight, but it's not always kind. You're expected to follow rules, respect elders, and stay in your place. Stepping out of line means shame, and shame's a heavy weight in a world where reputation is everything. Let's pause here because your day's just getting started, and it's already a marathon. You're a kid, but there's no childhood glow here. Just heat, hunger, and the constant grind of survival. The Nile's your lifeline, but it's also a reminder. In ancient Egypt, life doesn't wait for you to grow up. It demands you keep up, or it leaves you behind. All right, let's pick up where we left off. You're a poor kid in ancient Egypt, barely through the morning, and already the sun's trying to cook you alive. You've survived waking up on a bug-infested mat, choked down some gritty bread, and started your day's work in the fields or hauling water. But now, let's dive into what happens next. Because in this world, the grind never stops, and the stakes only get higher. Life as a poor child in 1500 BCE isn't just about surviving the day. It's about dodging the million ways this world can end you before you hit puberty. Let's walk through the rest of your afternoon and see what fresh challenges ancient Egypt has in store. The sun's climbing higher, and the heat's turning your village into an oven. You're out in the fields now, or maybe by the river, depending on your family's lot. If you're working the land, you're bent over, planting barley or flax under your father's watchful eye. The soil's rich from the Nile's silt, but it's also stubborn, clumpy and heavy, sticking to your hands like glue. You're using a wooden hoe, worn smooth from years of use, and every swing feels like it's rattling your bones. The work's repetitive, back-breaking, and endless. You're not just planting seeds. You're planting your family's hope for food next season. One bad move, one missed row, and you could tip the balance toward hunger. If you're a girl, you might be at the river instead, filling jars with water for cooking or irrigation. The Nile's edge is a chaotic place. Women washing linen, kids splashing, and fishermen gutting their catch while ibises poke around for scraps. You've got to be quick, not just to avoid crocodiles, but to keep up with the demands back home. The jars are heavy, and your arms burn from carrying them. Spill even a drop, and your mother's glare will hurt worse than the blisters. You're also learning to weave or spin flax into thread, skills you'll need to make clothes or nets. Your fingers are nimble but raw, pricked by the rough fibers. No one's teaching you for fun. This is your future, and it's non-negotiable. Let's talk about food again, because by midday, your stomach's screaming. Lunch, if it happens, is a quick affair. Maybe you get a handful of lentils or a piece of onion to go with your bread. If your family's lucky, there's a bit of dried fish, but it's often so salty it burns your tongue. Fresh fruit? Only if the date palms are generous, and even then, you're sharing with everyone else. The rich kids in town might get honey or figs, but for you, sweetness is a distant dream. You eat fast, squatting in the shade of a tree or a wall, swatting flies that seem to love your food more than you do. Water's still from that murky jar, and you've learned not to look too closely at what's floating in it. The afternoons when things get dicey. The heat's at its peak, and dehydration's a real threat. You don't know the word, but you feel it: dizziness, dry mouth, a headache that pounds like a drum. No one's handing out water bottles or electrolytes. You drink what you can, but the Nile's water isn't always safe. Parasites are a constant risk. Schistosomiasis from wading in the river can leave you weak and feverish for weeks. You've seen kids in the village get sick, their bellies swollen, their eyes dull. Some recover, some don't. Medicine's not a thing you can count on. If you're sick, your family might pray to Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of healing, or rub some herbal paste on you, but it's mostly guesswork. The priests know more, but they don't visit poor villages unless someone's paying. Work doesn't stop for sickness or heat. If you're in the fields, you're now harvesting or weeding, dodging scorpions and snakes that love the shade of the crops. If you're helping with a trade, you're running errands, carrying clay to the potter, fetching wood for the fire, or cleaning fish for the market. Every task is urgent because your family's survival depends on it. The markets where you see the other side of Egypt, the merchants with their linen awnings, the scribes with their papyrus rolls, the priests in white robes who look like they've never sweated a day in their lives. You're invisible to them, just another dirty kid scurrying through the dust. But you notice everything: their jewelry, their clean clothes, the way they don't flinch at the price of a loaf. Social rules are strict, and you're learning them fast. Respect the elders, bow to the priests, and never, ever cross someone higher up the ladder. The pharaoh's at the top, a living god, but you'll never see him. Below him are nobles, priests, and officials, all untouchable. Your family's at the bottom: farmers, laborers, or artisans if you're lucky. Stepping out of line, even as a kid, can mean trouble. If you accidentally bump into a scribe or spill water near a noble's cart, you might get a whipping or worse. Your parents teach you to keep your head down, but you're still a kid. Curiosity gets you in trouble. You stare too long at a shiny amulet, and suddenly you're being yelled at for coveting. Playtime's rare, but it happens. In the late afternoon, when the sun dips, you might get a moment to run with other kids. Games are simple: tag, tossing stones, or rolling a hoop made of reeds. You might make a doll from straw or carve a boat from a stick, but these are fleeting joys. Play often gets interrupted by a call to work or a sibling fight. You're close with your brothers and sisters, but you bicker constantly. There's no space to avoid each other. If you're lucky, an older kid might tell stories about Anubis or Ra, and for a moment you forget the hunger and the heat. But stories don't fill your belly, and the day's not over yet. As the sun starts to set, you're still working, maybe repairing a net or stacking grain. Your hands are cracked, your feet are filthy, and your body's screaming for rest. But rest is a luxury. If the harvest is near, you might work into the night by the light of an oil lamp, the smoke stinging your eyes. Your parents don't let up because they can't. The landlord or the temple takes a chunk of your crops or goods, and if you don't deliver, you lose everything. Taxes aren't optional, and the overseer's whip is real. You've seen families lose their land, forced to beg or work as laborers for someone else. That fear keeps everyone moving. The evening brings a shift, though. The village quiets down, and you might gather with your family around a small fire. Your mother's cooking something, maybe a stew of lentils and leeks, thickened with barley. It's not much, but it's warm, and you're grateful. You sit on the ground, sharing a single bowl, passing it around. The firelight flickers, and for a moment, there's a sense of togetherness. Your father might tell a story about the gods or curse the landlord under his breath. Your mother hums a tune, and you feel safe even if just for now. But safety's fragile. The night brings its own dangers, thieves, animals, or worse, the spirits. You've heard tales of restless dead or angry gods haunting the dark. Your family keeps amulets, little carvings of Bes, the protector god, to ward off evil. You clutch one tightly as you lie down on your mat, the same one you woke up on, still crawling with bugs. Sleep's not a guarantee. Hunger, heat, or a crying sibling might keep you up. But you close your eyes, hoping tomorrow's easier, knowing it probably won't be. Okay, let's keep moving through your day as a poor child in ancient Egypt, 1500 BCE. The sun's dipping lower now, casting long shadows across the Nile's banks. But don't think that means relief. The evening's just a different kind of grind, and for a kid like you, there's no clocking out. You've already endured a morning of backbreaking work, a measly lunch, and an afternoon dodging scorpions and social missteps. Now, as the sky turns orange, your world shifts to the rhythms of family, faith, and the ever-present threat of tomorrow. Let's dive into the evening and see how a poor Egyptian kid navigates the end of a brutal day and what it means for the bigger picture of your life. You're back at the mud brick house, the air cooling slightly but still heavy with the day's dust. Your family's gathered around a small fire in the center of the room, the smoke curling up through a hole in the roof. Your mother's stirring a pot of stew, lentils, maybe some wild greens, and if you're lucky, a scrap of fish. The smell's not exactly appetizing. It's earthy, a bit sour from days-old ingredients. You're handed a piece of flatbread, hard as a board, and you dip it into the communal bowl. Everyone's quiet, too tired to talk much. Your little brother's whining for more, but there isn't any. You give him half your share because you know he's hungrier than you, even if it leaves your stomach twisting. This meal's the highlight of your day, but it's also a reminder of how precarious things are. Food's never guaranteed. The Nile's floods dictate the harvest, and a bad year means everyone tightens their belts. You've seen families in the village resort to eating wild roots or even clay to fill their bellies. Starvation's not just a word. It's a shadow that lingers over every meal. Your parents don't talk about it, but you see it in their eyes. The fear that next season's crops won't come through. The temple or the landlord takes their cut first, and what's left is barely enough. You're too young to fully grasp the economics, but you know what an empty bowl feels like. After dinner, there's no winding down with a book or a game. If there's work left, mending a net, patching a basket, or grinding more grain, you're on it. Your hands are already raw, but you keep going because stopping means falling behind. If you're a girl, you might be spinning flax into thread by the firelight, your fingers aching as you twist the coarse fibers. Boys might be helping repair tools or cleaning up after the animals. The goats and chickens that share your yard are more than pets. They're survival. Their milk, eggs, or meat on rare occasions are what keep you from starving. But they're also a pain, always wandering off or making a mess you have to clean up. The village is quieter now, but it's not peaceful. The night brings its own anxieties. You've heard stories of thieves sneaking into houses, stealing grain or tools. Worse, there are tales of spirits, angry ancestors or demons, who roam in the dark. Your family's got amulets of Bes or Taret, the hippo goddess who protects kids and mothers, tucked into corners of the house. You wear a small one around your neck, a chipped stone carving your father made. It's not much, but it feels like a shield against the unknown. Religion's not just a Sunday thing here. It's woven into every moment. You pray before eating, before sleeping, before stepping near the river. The gods are everywhere, and they're not always kind. Speaking of gods, let's talk about religion's grip on your life. The priests in their white linen robes might seem distant, but their influence is suffocating. They control the festivals, the offerings, and the stories you're told about the world. You've never been inside the grand temples in Thebes, but you've seen their towering walls from a distance, gleaming in the sun. Those are for the pharaoh and the elite, not you. Your family prays at a small shrine in the village, a mud brick alcove with a statue of Ammonius or Hathor. You offer what you can: a bit of bread, a flower, or just a whispered prayer. The gods demand respect, and you've been taught that ignoring them invites chaos. Ma'at, the principle of order, is what keeps the world spinning, and even a kid like you is expected to uphold it. Festivals are one of the few breaks you get, but they're not exactly fun. They're loud, crowded, and heavy with ritual. During the Opet festival, when the god Ammonia's statue is carried from Karnak to Luxor, your village joins the procession. You're not there to party, you're there to show devotion. You walk barefoot in the dust, chanting with the crowd, while priests burn incense and chant in words you don't understand. If you're lucky, you might get a scrap of food handed out by the temple, but it's rare. Mostly, you're just another face in the crowd, sweating and hoping the gods notice your effort. Back home, as the fire dies down, your parents might talk about the future, your future. For a poor kid, it's not bright. Boys are expected to follow their father's trade, whether it's farming, fishing, or crafting. Girls are groomed for marriage, often by age 12 or 13. Love's not part of the equation, it's about survival, alliances, or just one less mouth to feed. You've seen your older sister married off to a farmer from the next village, her face blank as she left. You know your turn's coming, and it feels like a trap you can't escape. Education, that's for scribes or priests' sons, not you. You might learn a few hieroglyphs if your father's got a knack for it, but reading and writing are luxuries like meat or clean water. The night's settling in now, and you're back on your mat, the same one you woke up on. The air's cooler, but the bugs are still there, crawling over your skin. You pull your thin linen cloth over you, trying to ignore the itch. Your siblings are already snoring, but you're wide awake, staring at the dark. You're thinking about the Nile, the gods, the harvest. You're thinking about the stories the old women tell, about kids who wandered too far and got taken by Sobuk, the crocodile god. You clutch your amulet tighter, whispering a prayer to Bess. Sleep's hard to come by when every day feels like a battle, and tomorrow's just another round. Your life's not just about work and hunger, though. There's a rhythm to it, a strange kind of beauty in the struggle. The Nile glitters under the stars, and sometimes, when the village is quiet, you hear the distant call of a jackal or the rustle of palm fronds. You're part of something bigger, a cycle of floods, harvests, and prayers that's been going for centuries. You don't know it, but you're living in one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world. To you, it's just home, dirty, hard, and unforgiving. As you drift off, you dream of something better. A full belly, a pair of sandals, maybe a day without work. But dreams don't last long. The roosters will crow before dawn, and your mother's grinding stone will start again. You're a kid, but childhood's a luxury you can't afford. In ancient Egypt, you grow up fast or you don't grow up at all. Now, let's step into the next chapter of your life as a poor child in ancient Egypt, 1500 BCE. The night's closed in, and you're curled up on your worn mat, the flicker of the dying fire barely warming the mud brick walls. Sleep's a fleeting escape, but it's not a reset. Dawn's coming, and with it, another day of survival. You're not just living moment to moment. You're caught in a bigger web of expectations, dangers, and dreams that feel impossibly out of reach. Let's explore what shapes your world beyond the daily grind. The social rules, the looming threats, and the faint glimmers of hope that keep you going. This is your life, and it's as unforgiving as the desert sun. You wake to the familiar scrape of your mother's grinding stone, the sound pulling you from a dream you can't quite remember. The air's cool for now, but the heat's already creeping in through the reed roof. Your siblings are stirring, and the goat's bleeding outside, probably eating something it shouldn't. You're sore from yesterday's work. Your hands sting from weaving or hauling, and your feet are cracked from running barefoot. But there's no time to linger. You're up, splashing your face with water from a clay jar. It's gritty and you spit out a bit of sand. Hygiene's not a priority here. You might rinse your hands or wipe your face with a damp cloth, but bathing's a rare event. The Nile's close, but washing means time, and time's a luxury you don't have. Let's talk about your body for a second, because it's taking a beating. You're small for your age, maybe 8 or 9, but you look younger. Malnutrition does that. Your diet of barley bread, lentils, and the occasional fish doesn't exactly fuel growth spurts. Your teeth are already a mess, worn from chewing gritty bread and unbrushed because toothbrushes aren't a thing. You might chew a stick to clean them, but it's not enough. Toothaches are common, and there's no dentist. Just a village healer who might pull a bad tooth with a knife if it gets too painful. Pain's just part of life, like the lice in your scalp or the blisters on your feet. Your health's a constant gamble. The Nile's a lifeline, but it's also a breeding ground for parasites. You've waded in it, fetching water or helping with irrigation, and that puts you at risk for diseases like schistosomiasis, which can leave you feverish and weak. You've seen kids in the village waste away, their bodies betraying them. Medicine's rudimentary, herbs, prayers, and amulets are all you've got. If you get sick, your family might burn incense to Sekhmet or rub your skin with a paste of garlic and honey, but it's hit or miss. Serious illness often means death, especially for kids. Half the children in your village don't make it to adulthood, and you know it even if no one says it out loud. Your role in the family's shifting as you get older. You're not just a helper now, you're a cog in the machine. If you're a boy, you're learning your father's trade in earnest. Maybe he's a farmer, and you're starting to handle the plow, your small hands struggling with the heavy wood. Or he's a fisherman, and you're untangling nets, the smell of fish clinging to you like a second skin. If you're a girl, you're mastering the skills that'll define your life. Grinding grain, weaving linen, or tending to younger siblings. You're also learning to cook, though cooking is a generous term for boiling vegetables or baking bread in a clay oven that's more smoke than heat. The social hierarchy's becoming clearer to you, too. Your family's at the bottom, scraping by while nobles and priests live in a world you can't imagine. You've glimpsed them in the market. Men in fine linen, women with gold jewelry, their skin soft and unburned. They don't look at you, but you see them and it stings. You're taught to respect them, to bow or step aside when they pass. Disrespecting a higher-up could mean a beating or worse. The pharaoh's name is whispered like a god's, but he's as distant as the stars. You know he's in Thebes or Memphis, living in a palace, but to you, he's more myth than man. Crime's a real threat, even in your small village. Stealing's tempting when you're hungry, but the consequences are brutal. If you're caught taking a loaf of bread or a handful of grain, you could lose a hand or be beaten publicly. Justice is swift and harsh, meant to scare everyone else into line. You've seen it happen. A neighbor dragged to the village square, his cries echoing as the overseer swings a stick. It's a lesson. Survival means playing by the rules, even when the rules feel like chains. You learn to keep your hands to yourself, even when your stomach's screaming. But it's not all fear and toil. There's community, too, a network of families bound by necessity. Your neighbors aren't just neighbors. They're your safety net. If your family's harvest fails, they might share a bit of grain. If someone's sick, the village women gather to help. You've seen it when a baby's born or someone dies. Everyone pitches in, bringing food or weaving a burial shroud. It's not kindness. It's survival. You help them because you'll need them someday. Gossip's part of it, too. You hear the women whispering about who's lazy, who's cheating, or who's cursed by the gods. It's entertainment, but it's also a warning. Don't be the one they talk about. Your dreams are starting to take shape, even if they're small. You might imagine being a fisherman with your own boat or a weaver whose cloth is sold in Thebes. But those dreams are tethered to reality. You know you'll likely live and die within a few miles of your village, working the same fields or trades as your parents. The idea of becoming a scribe or a priest is laughable. Those paths are for the elite, not you. Still, you listen when the old men tell stories of heroes like Horus or the clever god Thoth, and for a moment you feel like you could be more. Stories are your escape, a way to forget the hunger and the heat. As the day looms ahead, you're sent on a task. Maybe delivering a basket of reeds to a neighbor or fetching water for the evening meal. The village is waking up, and you weave through the narrow paths, dodging dogs and kids younger than you. The Nile's sparkling in the distance, and you pause for a second, watching a heron swoop low. It's beautiful, but you can't linger. Beauty doesn't feed you and works waiting. You're a kid, but you're already carrying the weight of your family's survival, and it's heavier than any water jar. Let's dive back into your life as a poor child in ancient Egypt, 1500 BCE. You're standing in the early morning light, the Nile glinting in the distance, a basket of reeds in your arms, or a clay jar balanced on your head. The village is stirring, and another day of survival is already in motion. You're not just a kid running errands. You're a thread in the fabric of your family's existence, woven tightly into a world of labor, faith, and fragile hope. Now, let's push deeper into what this life means as you grow, how the weight of responsibility settles on your shoulders, and what the future holds for a child born into the dust of the Nile's banks. This is your story, and it's as relentless as the river itself. You're moving through the village, your bare feet kicking up dust as you dodge a stray dog and a toddler chasing a chicken. The task at hand, delivering reeds or fetching water, is simple but critical. If you drop the jar or lose the reeds, it's not just a mistake. It's a blow to your family's resources. You're learning that everything counts. Every scrap of food, every bundle of flax, every drop of water. Waste is a sin in a world where survival hangs by a thread. You've seen your mother's face when a pot breaks or when the goats eat the wrong plants. Anger mixed with fear, because every loss pushes you closer to the edge. As you get older, the work gets harder. You're not just helping anymore, you're expected to produce. If you're a boy, you're spending more time in the fields or with your father's trade. Farming means long days under the sun, guiding oxen or digging irrigation channels with a wooden hoe. The Nile's floods have left the soil fertile, but it's a battle to plant and harvest before the next cycle. If your father's a craftsman, say, a potter, you're learning to shape clay, your hands caked with mud as you mimic his movements. Mistakes mean wasted materials, and you felt the sting of his hand when you ruin a pot. It's not cruelty, it's necessity. Every piece has to be sold or bartered for food. If you're a girl, your world is the home and the river. You're grinding grain until your shoulders ache, the stone's rough surface blistering your palms. You're weaving linen, your fingers nimble but sore from twisting flax into thread. You're also caring for younger siblings, wiping their faces or keeping them from wandering too close to the Nile's edge. The river's a constant danger, crocodiles and hippos don't discriminate, and you've heard too many stories of kids who didn't come back. You're learning to be a mother before you're even a teenager, because that's your path. Marriage looms like a storm cloud, and you've seen girls your age promise to men twice their years, their eyes hollow as they leave home. Let's talk about your place in the bigger picture, because ancient Egypt isn't just your village, it's a machine, and you're a small but essential part. The pharaoh, the nobles, and the priests depend on people like you. Your family's crops feed the cities, your father's baskets or pots supply the markets, and your labor keeps the temples stocked with offerings. But you see none of the wealth. The system's rigged, landlords and officials take their share, leaving you with just enough to scrape by. You've heard whispers of rebellion, of farmers refusing to pay taxes, but it's rare. The overseer's whip and the god's wrath keep everyone in line. You're taught that suffering is part of Ma'at, the cosmic order, but it feels like a lie when your stomach's empty. Dangers everywhere, and not just from the river or the heat. Injuries are common, cuts from sharp tools, burns from the cooking fire, or broken bones from a fall. There's no hospital, no bandages, just a healer who might wrap your wound with linen and mutter a spell. Infections are deadly, and you've seen people die from a scratch that turned bad. Wild animals are another threat. Snakes hide in the fields and jackals prowl at night. You've learned to move carefully, to listen for the rustle of reeds or the hiss of a cobra. Even the weather's a foe. A sandstorm can sweep through, blinding you and burying crops, or a drought can shrink the Nile's flow, spelling famine. Yet, there's resilience in you, a toughness you don't even recognize. You laugh with other kids when you get a rare moment to play, racing through the village or tossing stones in a game of skill. You find joy in small things, a ripe date snatched from a tree, a story about Osiris outwitting Set, or the way the Nile sparkles at dawn. Your family's your anchor, even when they're harsh. Your mother's sharp tongue hides a fierce love, and your father's rare smile when you do something right feels like a prize. Your siblings are your allies, sharing the burden and the occasional secret. You're not alone, and that keeps you going. The gods are your constant companions, for better or worse. You pray to Hapi for the Nile's floods, to Hathor for protection, to Anubis for the dead. Every action's tied to them, planting, harvesting, even sleeping. You've seen your parents leave offerings at the village shrine, a handful of grain or a broken pot, hoping for favor. You believe in the gods because you have to. The alternative, doubting them, feels like inviting disaster. You've heard of people cursed for neglecting rituals, their crops failing or their children dying. Fear keeps you faithful, but so does wonder. The stories of Ra's sunboat or Isis's magic make the world feel bigger, even if your place in it is small. Your future's closing in, and it's not a choice. It's a path carved by necessity. Boys will marry young, taking on a wife and a plot of land, repeating their father's life. Girls will be wives and mothers, their days filled with the same tasks you're learning now. You might dream of something else, being a trader sailing the Nile or a dancer at a festival. But those are fantasies. The reality is your village, your family, your gods. You'll grow old fast if you grow old at all. Life expectancy's short, 30 or 40 if you're lucky, less if disease or injury claims you. You don't know these numbers, but you feel the urgency, the need to prove yourself before time runs out. As you finish your task and head home, the sun's climbing, and the village is alive with noise. Women shouting, donkeys braying, the clink of tools. You're tired already, but you keep moving. You're a child, but childhood's a fleeting shadow here. You're shaped by the Nile, the gods, and the unyielding demands of survival. Every day's a test, and you're passing it not because you're strong, but because you have no other choice. Let's slip back into your life as a poor child in ancient Egypt, 1500 BCE. The sun's rising higher, baking the village as you trudge home from your morning task, dust clinging to your feet. You're carrying the weight of your family's survival, a burden that's grown heavier as you've aged. You're not just a kid anymore. You're a vital part of the household, and every step you take is a step toward keeping your family afloat. Now, let's explore the broader rhythms of your life. The seasons that shape your work, the rituals that bind your community, and the fleeting moments of humanity that make this grueling existence bearable. This is your world, carved from the Nile's mud and the gods' whims. You're back at the house, dropping off the reeds or setting the water jar by the door. Your mother barely glances up. She's kneading dough for tonight's bread, her hands moving with a rhythm born of years. Your father's already gone, out in the fields or at the market, bartering what little your family can spare. The house smells of smoke and sweat, the same as always, but there's a tension today. The inundation season's approaching, when the Nile will flood and transform the land. It's a time of hope and dread. A good flood means fertile soil and a strong harvest. A weak one means hunger. You're too young to control it, but old enough to feel the stakes. You've seen your parents pray to Happy, the river god, their voices low and urgent, and you've started mimicking their prayers, hoping the gods are listening. The seasons dictate everything here. There are three Ake, the flooding season, Parate, the planting season, and Shimu, the harvest. Right now, you're on the cusp of Ake, and work's shifting. During the flood, the fields are underwater, so you're not planting or harvesting. Instead, you're helping repair tools, weave baskets, or build up the mud brick walls of your house to withstand the water. If your family's lucky, your father might get work on a pharaoh's project, canals, temples, or tombs, since farming's on hold. It's grueling labor, but it brings extra grain or linen, a rare chance to ease the constant scrape of poverty. You tag along sometimes, carrying water or hauling straw, awestruck by the massive stone blocks and the overseer's barking orders. It's a glimpse of a world beyond your village, but it's not yours. Rituals mark the seasons, and you're starting to understand their weight. During Ake, the village holds ceremonies for Happy, with offerings of bread or flowers tossed into the Nile. You join the procession barefoot and chanting, the air thick with incense. It's not just devotion, it's survival. The gods control the flood, and neglecting them could doom everyone. Other festivals dot the year, like the Feast of Waji, honoring the dead. You've seen your parents leave food at a relative's grave, whispering to ancestors you never met. Death's close here, not abstract. You've lost a sibling to fever, maybe two, and their absence lingers like a ghost in the house. You don't cry much, Grief's a luxury when you're fighting to eat. Community's your lifeline, and you're learning its unwritten rules. The village is a web of favors and debts. Your neighbor might lend a sickle or share a fish, but you'll owe them later. You're sent on errands to strengthen these ties, delivering a basket to an ant or helping an elder carry firewood. Respect's non-negotiable. You bow to the village headman, avoid eye contact with priests, and never speak out of turn. Breaking these rules means shame, and shame's a stain that spreads. You've seen kids mocked for laziness or punished for disrespect. Their families shunned until they make amends. You keep your head down, but it's hard, you're curious, and curiosity's dangerous. There's beauty in the village, though, if you squint. The Nile's banks are lush with papyrus and lotus, and sometimes you steal a moment to watch fish dart through the shallows. At dusk, the sky burns red, and the air carries the scent of mud and green. You've got friends, not the kind who text or hang out, but kids you run with when work allows. You play games like catch the stick or wrestle in the dirt, laughing until someone calls you back. These moments are rare, like water in the desert, but they're what keep you human. You're tough, but you're still a kid, craving joy even if it's fleeting. Your body's changing, and it's not just from work. Puberty's creeping in earlier for girls than boys because of the harsh diet. If you're a girl, you're already being eyed for marriage. Your mother's teaching you how to bind your hair or manage monthly bleeding with strips of linen. Practical lessons delivered without sentiment. Boys are pushed toward manhood. 2, your father might take you to the river to learn to fish or show you how to sharpen a blade. These aren't just skills. They're your ticket to contributing more. The older you get, the more's expected, and there's no room for slacking. You're not a child much longer, and the thought sits heavy. Death's shadow is never far. You've seen it in the village. A baby lost to fever, a man crushed by a falling stone, a woman dead in childbirth. Funerals are simple but sacred. The body's wrapped in linen, buried in the desert with a few belongings. A pot, a bead, maybe an amulet. You've helped dig a grave, the sand burning your hands, and you've heard the mourners wail, their grief raw and loud. The afterlife's real to you, a place where the dead live if they're judged worthy. You pray your heart's light enough when Anubis weighs it, but you're not sure. You're just a kid, but you've already lied, stolen a date, or cursed under your breath. Guilt's a quiet companion. Hope's there, too stubborn as a weed. You dream of small victories, a good harvest, a new kilt, maybe a day at a festival where you can eat until you're full. You've heard tales of people rising above their station, a farmer's son becoming a soldier, a weaver's daughter catching a merchant's eye. It's rare, but it's enough to spark something in you. You're not naive, though. The Nile's your world, and it's both cradle and cage. You'll likely live and die here, your bones buried in the same sand your ancestors walked. But for now, you're alive, and that's a fight you're winning. As you head out for the day's work, maybe to the fields, maybe to the river, you feel the sun's heat on your back. The village hums with life, and you're part of it, a small but stubborn piece. You're shaped by hunger, labor, and the gods' unyielding gaze, but you're more than that. You're a kid with a spark, a story, a name whispered in prayers. And today, like every day, you keep moving because in ancient Egypt, that's what survival means. Let's step back into your life as a poor child in ancient Egypt, 1500 BCE. The sun's climbing, scorching the village as you head out for the day's work, the Nile shimmering like a promise you can't quite trust. You're not just carrying a hoe or a water jar, you're carrying your family's survival, a weight that's grown heavier with each passing year. You're on the cusp of leaving childhood behind, your body and mind shaped by the relentless demands of the Nile's world. Now, let's delve into the deeper currents of your existence. The legacy of your ancestors, the pressures of growing up, and the faint hope that keeps you pushing through the dust and sweat. This is your life, etched in the shadow of the gods. You're moving toward the fields or the river, your steps quick but careful, dodging the sharp stones that litter the path. The village is alive. Women pounding grain, men shouting at donkeys, kids darting through the chaos. Your task today might be planting seeds in the still wet soil of Akhe's aftermath or fetching clay for your father's pottery. Every move matters. A misstep could mean a ruined crop or a broken pot, And you've seen the consequences. Your parents' strained faces, the way they ration bread when supplies run low. You're not just working. You're fighting to keep your family from slipping into the abyss of starvation. Your ancestors are a quiet presence in your life. You've never met them, but their stories are woven into the village's fabric. Your father speaks of his grandfather, a farmer who outsmarted a flood by building a makeshift dam, saving the harvest. Your mother tells of her aunt, a weaver whose cloth was once traded in Thebes. These tales aren't just nostalgia, they're lessons. They teach you resilience, cunning, and the importance of honoring the dead. You've helped place offerings at their graves, small bowls of grain or a broken amulet, praying they'll guide you from the afterlife. The dead aren't gone. They're watching, and you feel their eyes when you falter. Growing up is closing in fast, and it's not a gentle transition. If you're a boy, you're being groomed to take over your father's role. You're learning to read the Nile's moods, when to plant, when to irrigate, because a single mistake can ruin a season. If your father's a craftsman, you're mastering his tools, your hands clumsy but improving. You've felt the pressure of his expectations, his sharp words when you fail. If you're a girl, your mother's lessons are relentless. How to bake bread just right, how to weave a net that won't tear, how to soothe a crying baby. You're being shaped into a wife, a mother, a keeper of the home. Marriage is no longer a distant threat. It's a reality creeping closer. You've seen girls barely older than you leave for their husband's house. Their faces a mix of fear and resignation. The pressure's not just from your family. It's from the village, the gods, the whole system. You're expected to uphold Ma'at, the cosmic order, in every action. Steal a handful of barley, and you're not just a thief, you're disrupting the balance, inviting divine punishment. You've heard the priests' warnings during festivals, their voices booming about the chaos that follows disobedience. You believe it, mostly. You've seen bad harvests follow a villager's curse or a child's death after a neglected offering. But sometimes, late at night, you wonder why the gods favor the rich, why nobles eat while you starve. You don't voice these thoughts, they're dangerous, and doubt feels like a betrayal. Your body's a map of your life. Your hands are calloused, your skin rough from sun and sand. Scars mark you, a burn from a cooking fire, a cut from a sharp reed. You're stronger than you look, but hunger keeps you small, your ribs visible under your skin. Illness is a constant shadow. You've had fevers, maybe a bout of dysentery from bad water. You survived, but others haven't. You've carried water to a sick neighbor, watched a healer chant over a dying child. Medicine's more faith than science. Herbs, spells, and hope. You wear an amulet of Bess, its edges worn from your constant touch. It's not much, but it's a shield against the unseen. The village is your world, but you're starting to see its edges. You've been to the market in a nearby town, trailing your father as he barters. The sights overwhelm you. Stalls piled with onions, fish, and linen, merchants shouting, scribes scribbling on papyrus. You're invisible to them, just a dirty kid in a tattered kilt, but you soak it all in. You've heard of Thebes, the great city with its temples and palaces, but it's as distant as the moon. Your world is here, in the mud and reeds, and you're learning to navigate it. You know which neighbors are generous, which are cruel. You know the best spots to find wild herbs or catch a fish. You're a survivor, and that's a skill no one can take. Moments of lightness are rare but precious. You steal them when you can. Racing a friend to the river, laughing when you both trip in the mud. You've carved a toy boat from a stick, watching it bob in the shallows, pretending you're a trader sailing to punt. At night, when the work's done, you listen to your grandmother's stories. Tales of Isis's cunning or the serpent Apophis battling RA. These stories are your escape, a window to a world where kids like you can be heroes. You cling to them because they're the only thing that feels bigger than your hunger. Your future's a narrow path, but you're starting to walk it. Boys will marry soon, taking on a wife and debts, their lives mirroring their fathers. Girls will wed even sooner, their days consumed by children and chores. You might dream of breaking free, becoming a soldier, a healer, or even a priest, but those are for others, not you. Still, you hold on to small hopes. A good flood, a healthy sibling, a day without pain. You're not sure what happy means, but you know what alive feels like, and you fight for it every day. As you reach the fields or the river, the sun's high, and the work begins again. You're a child, but childhood's slipping away, burned off by the Nile's relentless cycle. You're shaped by the land, the gods, and the people who need you to keep going. You're tired, hungry, and scarred, but you're here, and that's enough for now. In ancient Egypt, survival is your victory, and you claim it with every breath. Let's dive deeper into your life as a poor person in ancient Egypt, 1500 BCE. The sun's blazing overhead, and you're knee-deep in the day's work. Maybe sowing seeds in the Nile's fertile mud or hauling clay. Your childhood's fading fast, replaced by the weight of survival and the expectations of a world that doesn't wait for you to grow up. Now, let's explore the intricate web of your daily existence. The skills you're honing, the relationships that define you, and the quiet moments of defiance that keep your spirit alive. This is your story, scratched into the dust of the Nile's banks, as enduring as the river itself. You're in the fields or by the river, your hands busy, your mind half on the task and half on the ache in your stomach. The work's relentless, planting, weeding, or carrying heavy loads under the sun's unyielding glare. If you're male, you're mastering the tools of your trade. Maybe you're guiding a plow, the wooden handle slipping in your sweaty palms, or learning to mend a fishing net, your fingers fumbling with your father's knots. Each skill is a step toward manhood, but it's also a chain, tying you to a life that mirrors your father's. If you're female, you're perfecting the domestic arts, spinning flax into thread, baking bread in a smoky oven, or balancing water jars with a grace that hides the strain. These aren't just chores. They're your currency, proof you're ready for the marriage that's looming closer every day. Your relationships are your lifeline and your cage. Your parents are your teachers, but they're also your taskmasters. Your mother's voice is sharp when you spill grain, but her hands are gentle when you're sick, rubbing your forehead with a damp cloth. Your father's approval is rare, a grunt when you hoe a straight row, but it's worth more than a full belly. Your siblings are both rivals and allies. You're fighting over the last scrap of bread, but you'd give up your share if they were starving. Your older siblings have taken punishment for you, or slipped you a date they found by the river. These bonds are unspoken, forged in the crucible of shared hardship. The community is a network of eyes and obligations. You're watched constantly, not just by your family, but by neighbors, elders, and the gods. You've learned to navigate this scrutiny, bowing to the headman, offering a reed mat to a grieving family, or joining the chants at a festival. Every action's a performance, proving you're part of the community. But you've also learned to hide, slipping behind a palm tree to eat a stolen fig, or whispering a joke about the pompous priest. These small rebellions are your secret, a spark of self in a world that demands obedience. Skills are your survival, but they're also your pride. You're getting good at something, maybe spotting the best fishing spots or weaving a basket so tight it holds water. You've overheard your parents brag about your steady hands or praise your bread to a neighbor. These moments light you up, a reminder you're more than a pair of hands. But pride's dangerous. Boast too much and you'll draw envy or a curse. You've seen it, a person mocked for claiming they'd be a soldier or shunned for weaving better than an elder. You keep your head down, letting your work speak for you. The gods are your shadow, their presence inescapable. You pray to Thoth for cunning when you barter at the market, to Hathor for your sister's safe childbirth, to Bes for protection from nightmares. You've helped your family build a small shrine in the house, a clay figure of Ammonius, its paint chipped but sacred. You offer what you can, a flower, a pebble, your whispered fears. The gods are both comfort and threat. You believe they see you, but you're not sure they care. You've seen good people suffer, a cousin's death from a snake bite, a neighbor's crops lost to locusts. You wonder quietly if Maat's balance is just a story for the rich. But you pray anyway, because doubt's a luxury you can't afford. Time's moving faster now. You're not a child anymore. Not really. If you're male, you're nearing the age to marry, maybe 15, with a wife chosen by your parents. You'll take on a plot of land, debts, and the same grind your father endures. If you're female, marriage might come even sooner, at 12 or 13. You'll leave your family for a stranger's house. Your days filled with babies and chores. You've seen the cycle. Your mother's tired eyes. Your aunt's endless pregnancies. You don't want it, but you don't get a choice. Love's a myth. Survival's the deal. You hope for a kind partner, but you brace for the worst. Defiance lives in you, small but fierce. You sneak a moment to watch the sunset, ignoring the call to work. You carve a secret symbol, a bird, maybe into a hidden corner of a pot, a mark that says you exist. You tell yourself stories where you're a hero, outwitting a crocodile or finding a lost treasure. These acts are tiny, but they're yours, proof you're more than the sum of your tasks. You've learned to guard this spark because the world wants to grind it out. You've seen it in others. A friend who laughed too freely, now beaten into silence. A sibling who dreamed too big, now broken by marriage. The Nile's your constant. Its floods and fish your lifeline. You know its moods better than your own. The way it swells in Ake, the way it sparkles in Parade. It's given you everything, but it's taken too. You've lost a sandal to its mud, a friend to its depths. You respect it like a god, but you don't trust it. The river's a mirror for your life. Beautiful, vital, but ready to swallow you whole if you're not careful. As you work, sweating, aching, alive, you feel the weight of it all. The gods, the community, the future pressing down. But you keep going. You're not just surviving. You're claiming your place, however small, in this ancient world. You're a person on the edge of adulthood, a thread in the Nile's endless weave, and your story's still unfolding, one stubborn step at a time. Let's step back into your life as a poor person in ancient Egypt, 1500 BCE. The sun's a relentless hammer, beating down as you toil in the fields or by the river. Your hands raw from work, your mind a tangle of duty and dreams. You're no longer a child. Adulthood's grip is tightening, and the world expects you to carry its weight. Now, let's weave through the final threads of your story. The legacy you're building, the fears that haunt you, and the unbreakable spirit that carries you forward. This is your life, etched in the Nile's mud, a testament to survival in a world as beautiful as it is brutal. You're deep in the rhythm of work, maybe scattering barley seeds across the damp earth or kneading clay into a pot. Your movement's sure but weary. The skills you've honed are second nature now. If you're male, you can read the Nile's subtle signs, when the water's too high, when the soil's ready for planting. You've learned to mend a net or shape a plow, your hands steadier than they were a year ago. If you're female, you've mastered the grind of domestic life. Your bread's evenly baked, your linen's tightly woven, and you can soothe a crying sibling with a glance. These skills aren't just tasks. They're your worth, proof you're pulling your weight in a family that can't afford dead ends. Your legacy's starting to take shape, though you don't call it that. Every seed you plant, every pot you fire, every net you weave is a mark you leave on the world. You're not building pyramids or carving your name in stone, but you're feeding your family, strengthening your village. You've heard your parents speak of you with quiet pride, your father to a neighbor about your strong arms, your mother to an aunt about your quick fingers. These moments are rare, but they fuel you. You're not just surviving. You're becoming someone, a link in the chain of your ancestors who worked this same land. Fear's a constant companion, sharper now as you edge into adulthood. You fear the Nile's betrayal, a flood too weak or too fierce, wiping out the harvest. You fear illness, the kind that creeps in with a fever and leaves a grave. You've seen it too often. A friend lost to a snake bite, a sibling to bad water. If you're female, you fear childbirth, the stories of women who didn't survive it. If you're male, you fear failing your family, becoming the man who loses his land to debt. And always, you fear the god's judgment. You pray to Maat for balance, to Anubis for mercy, but you're never sure it's enough. Every mistake, a dropped jar, a harsh word, feels like a tally against your soul. The community's both your strength and your judge. You're bound to it by necessity. Neighbors who share grain when yours runs low, elders who teach you tricks for surviving drought. But they're quick to condemn. A misstep, gossiping too loudly, shirking work, spreads like fire. You've seen families ostracized, their offerings ignored at the shrine. You navigate this carefully, offering help when you can, keeping your secrets close. You've learned to read people, the headman's temper, the healer's kindness, the widow's sharp tongue. These are survival skills as vital as planting or weaving. Your spirit's what sets you apart, a flame the world can't snuff out. You find ways to resist the grind. You hum a tune while working, a melody your grandmother taught you. You share a sly grin with a friend when the overseer's back is turned. You've scratched your name or a symbol for it into a hidden corner of a wall, a quiet claim to existence. These acts are small, but they're defiance, proof you're more than a cog in Egypt's machine. You've seen others lose the spark, eyes dulled by hunger or loss, but you guard yours fiercely because it's all you own. The future's no longer a distant shadow. It's here. If you're male, you're likely married or soon will be, your wife a stranger chosen for her family's land or skills. You'll farm or craft, your days a repeat of your father's, your nights spent worrying about taxes and floods. If you're female, you're probably wed, maybe already pregnant, your life a cycle of babies, bread, and prayers. You've seen the toll it takes. Your mother's stooped back, your aunt's weary sigh. You hope for children who survive, for a partner who's kind, but you know hope's a gamble. The life expectancy's short, 30 or 40 if you're lucky, and every year feels like a race against time. The Nile's your anchor, its rhythm's your heartbeat. You know its every mood, the muddy swell of Ake, the clear flow of Parate, the dry banks of Shimu. It's fed you, but it's also taken friends drowned, crops ruined. You respect it, pray to it, but you never turn your back on it. It's a god in its own right, more real than the distant pharaoh. You've heard of his wars, his temples, but they're as far as the stars. Your world is here, in the village, where survival is the only victory that matters. As you pause for a moment, wiping sweat from your brow, you catch a glimpse of the horizon. The Nile glinting, the palms swaying. It's beautiful even if it's cruel. You're tired, hungry, and scarred, but you're alive, and that's a triumph. You're not a hero in the stories, not a priest or a king, but you're a survivor, and in ancient Egypt, that's enough. You turn back to your work, your hands moving with purpose, your heart carrying a stubborn spark. This is your life, and you're living it one fierce, fragile day at a time. Let's re-immerse ourselves in your life as a poor person in ancient Egypt, 1500 BCE. The sun scorches the earth as you labor, perhaps scattering seeds in the Nile's rich silt or shaping clay under the weight of survival. Adulthood has claimed you, and the world's demands are unyielding. Your hands calloused, your heart a battleground of duty and quiet defiance. Now, let's trace the final contours of your existence. The cycles that define your days, the legacy you leave in the dust, and the enduring spark that makes you more than a shadow on the Nile's banks. This is your story, carved in sweat and resilience, as timeless as the river itself. You're caught in the rhythm of work, your body moving with the muscle memory of years. If you're male, you're tilling fields or mending nets, your eyes scanning the horizon for signs of the Nile's next move. You know when to plant, when to harvest, each decision a gamble against famine. If you're female, you're grinding grain or weaving linen, your fingers swift despite the ache. You might be tending a child now, your own or a sibling's, balancing motherhood with the endless tasks that keep your household alive. Every action is a thread in the tapestry of survival, and you weave it with care, knowing a single snag could unravel everything. The cycles of the Nile shape your life like a heartbeat. Ake's floods have receded, and Parate, the planting season, is in full swing. You're out before dawn, sowing barley or flax, the soil cool under your feet. Shimu, the harvest, will come soon, bringing long days of reaping and threshing, your back bent under the sun. These seasons aren't just time, they're your fate. A good flood means bread. A bad one means hunger. You've lived through both, felt the relief of a full jar and the dread of an empty one. You pray to Happy, offer a reed to the river, but you've learned the gods don't always answer. Your legacy is humble but real. You're not a pharaoh or a priest, but your work feeds your family, your village, even the distant cities. The barley you plant becomes bread for a scribe's table. The pots you shape hold grain for a temple. You've taught your younger siblings to weave or fish, passing down skills like heirlooms. Your children, if you have them, will carry your name, your stories. Tales of floods outsmarted, of nets mended under starlight. You don't think of it as legacy, but it's there, in the calluses on your hands, the furrows you've plowed, the quiet pride in your mother's eyes when you bring home a full basket. Fear still stalks you, its edges sharper with age. You fear debt, the kind that could strip your family's land, forcing you to labor for another. You fear the Nile's whims, the locusts that can devour a field in hours, the fever that could claim your child. You fear illness. Your teeth ache, your joints creak, and every injury lingers longer now. The afterlife looms closer, too. You pray your heart's light when Anubis weighs it, but guilt gnaws at you. Small sins, like a stolen onion or a curse muttered in anger. You clutch your amulet of Bess, hoping it's enough to tip the scales. The community is a web of support and scrutiny. You're woven into it, sharing a sheep with a neighbor, joining a funeral procession, chanting at the shrine. But they're also a judge. To you, a misstep, gossiping too loudly, shirking work, spreads like fire. You've seen too many families shunned, ostracized, their offerings ignored. You navigate this with care, offering help carefully, offering a fish to the healer, a smile to the priest. Edmund, you've learned to read the community's mood swings like the Nile's, when to speak, when to stay silent. Your people friends are your refuge, their stories laughter a guide, shield against. You've shared secrets by the river, moments in of survival. Lightness, your spirit's a fire, to you unquished. You keep ways gonna fight. A spark streak a tune in a storm, a pebble skipped, a sketch hidden. You tell tales of heroism, tales of adventure. These tales are rebellion. You've seen people, friends broken, spirits dulled, but dulled. Yet you're you. You're a fire, a spark, a child's spark tale in of a child's tale. That the Nile is your lifeblood, a flood of flood, a life, it's it. You've given, taken, friends everything, taken, friends lost, everything. You take respect to it, fear, love, fear. It a god, a you. As you finish work, you're the day sun sets, the Nile gleams gold. The Nile's hums. You're a person. You're scarred but a child.